They told us the grave was the end. They were wrong. For the Forsaken, the grave was merely the waiting room. And the Undercity. That was our home. To the living, looking down from their towers of white stone and gold, this place was a festering wound beneath the earth, a sewer, a dungeon where monsters played at being human. They saw only the damp stone, the smell of formaldehyde, and the canals of green sludge glowing like sickened veins in the dark. They saw a tumor that needed to be cut from the flesh of Azeroth, but they did not see what we saw. They could not understand the comfort of the gloom. When the entire world screams at your existence, when your own family recoils at the sight of your rotting jaw, darkness does not feel like a threat. It feels like an embrace. The Undercity was the only place in this cursed world where we did not have to hide. The dripping ceilings of the apothecarium were our sky. The echo of the royal quarter was our symphony. Here among the rats and the slime, we were not monsters. We were citizens. We were free. But peace for the damned is a fragile illusion. I remember the vibration first. It was not a sound, but a shudder in the bones of the earth. Dust drifting down from the ancient archways, settling on cold, unbreathing skin. The rhythmic thrum of siege engines rolling across the glades of Tirisfal above. The lion had come to the gates. The boy king, Anduin, spoke of reclaiming Lordaeron. He spoke of justice. But down here in the damp shadows, we knew the truth. This was not a liberation. It was an extermination. They did not come to save the city, they came to purify it with fire. The great elevator creaked, halting in its shaft. The erratic humming of the arcane constructs faltered. A heavy silence fell over the rogues' quarter. A silence so profound it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for the first stone to crack. We looked up at the ceiling, at the tons of rock separating us from the sun, and we realized the cruelest joke of all. Our sanctuary was about to become our tomb. Again, war is rarely decided by the strength of the arm, but by the rot in the heart. And in the throne room, beneath the echoing stalactites of the upper city, the rot had already set in long before the first siege had engined fire. Sylvanas Windrunner stood upon the ramparts, a silhouette of jagged gray against the burning sky. To look at her was to look into the void of a predator's eye. She did not pace. She did not tremble. She watched the gathering storm of the Alliance with the cold detachment of a mortician examining a corpse. To her, the Undercity was not a heritage site. It was a mousetrap, and she was waiting for the lion to snap the bar. She was the Banshee Queen, the idol of the damned, but in those final hours, a terrifying clarity emerged. She was not protecting her people. She was hoarding ammunition. We were the arrows in her quiver, and she would snap every single one of us if it meant piercing the heart of her enemy. Contrast this with the old soldier standing in her shadow. High Overlord Sourfang. The orc was a mountain of scarred muscle, a relic of a different time and a different horde. He carried the weight of generations of bloodshed on his shoulders. He looked at the defensive lines, the abominations stitched together from spare parts, the goblins wiring explosives to the structural pillars, and he did not see strategy. He saw dishonor. He was the anomaly in this equation. In a city of the dead, he was the only thing that felt truly alive, pulsing with a regret so palpable you could taste it in the air. He knew that what was coming was not a battle. It was a massacre. He looked at Sylvanas and saw not a war chief, but a creature that had forgotten the definition of victory. For Saurfang, victory meant survival with honor. For Sylvanas, victory meant that everyone died, except her. And then, there were the others, the wretched masses huddled in the trade quarter. The history books will speak of Anduin Wrynn, the Golden King, wielding the light like a hammer. They will speak of Illyria Windrunner, bringing the void to swallow her former kin. But history forgets the little ghosts. The cockroach vendor, who had finally found a corner of the world that didn't scream at him. The alchemist, who had spent years brewing a potion to numb the phantom pain of a missing limb. They huddled in the dark corners, clutching their meager possessions. A rusted locket from a life they couldn't remember, a jar of slime and a jagged dagger. They listened to the marching boots thunder above their heads like the heartbeat of a vengeful god. To them, the Alliance was not a force of justice. It was a blinding, searing white light that promised nothing but erasure. They saw the golden armor of the invaders and felt only terror. The light does not comfort the undead. It burns us. It judges us. And as the first alarms began to wail, A collective realization swept through the gutters. The world above did not want us to change. They did not want us to repent. They simply wanted us gone. The tragedy was not that we were monsters fighting heroes. The tragedy was that we were refugees, squatting in the ruins of a kingdom that no longer wanted us, led by a queen who was already lighting the match to burn the house down with us inside. The walls of Lordaeron were ancient, built to withstand the sieges of kings and scourges alike, but they were not built to withstand the fury of a world united against them. When the breach happened, it didn't sound like stone breaking. It sounded like a scream. The Undercity proper, the labyrinth below, shuddered. Above, on the surface, the illusion of honorable combat disintegrated instantly. It was a grinder of meat and iron. The golden lions of Stormwind crashed into the spiked steel of Orgrimmar. Mud, blood, and snow churned into a gray paste. But for those of us watching from the shadows, the horror wasn't the fighting. It was the inevitability of it. We saw our defenders, brave grunts and dark rangers, pushed back step by agonizing step. The Alliance war machine was precise, relentless. A wave of white and blue steel that could not be stopped. The light of the invaders blinded us, searing retinas accustomed to the gloom. It felt like Judgment Day. And then, the wind changed. The order was given. Not a shout, but a whisper that slithered through the ranks. Unleash the weapon. Sylvanas did not call for reinforcements. She did not call for a retreat to save her people. She called for the plague. It rolled across the battlefield like a living carpet of emerald fog. It was beautiful in a sickening way, glowing with a luminescence that mocked the daylight. But where it touched, life ceased to be, and not just the enemy. I watched an orc warrior, a veteran of a dozen campaigns, turn to his war chief for salvation, only to cough his lungs out onto the mud as the green gas enveloped him. He melted, armor, skin, bone, dissolving into a slurry of nothingness. The screams changed pitch. The Alliance faltered, their holy light dimming against the chemical burn of the Blight. But the Horde broke. We realized then, huddled in the damp dark of the apothecarium, that we were not being defended. We were being liquidated. The gas began to seep through the vents, heavy and sweet-smelling. Panic. Absolute primal panic. The elevators were locked. The portals were unstable. The city, our refuge, had become a gas chamber. And the final insult? As our defenders fell, choking on the poison their own leader had unleashed. They did not find rest. Sylvanas raised her hands, and violet energy tore through the green mist. The bodies of the fallen, Alliance and Horde alike jerked upright. Puppets. They were denied even the dignity of death. They rose as mindless constructs, stripped of name and honor, forced to fight for the very queen who had murdered them moments before. The message was clear. In the battle for Lordaeron, there are no citizens. There are only tools. And when a tool breaks, you use the pieces. The Alliance pushed through the gas, their king wielding the light to clear the fog. They breached the inner sanctum, the throne room. And there, the Banshee Queen played her final card. She didn't intend to win the city. She intended to ensure no one else could have it. The plague vats in the lower levels were rigged. The fuses were lit. The entire city, the history, the homes, the sanctuary, it was all just fuel for a final, spiteful explosion. The end did not come with a bang, but with a sickening wet heave. The throne room, the very heart of Lordaeron, collapsed inward. The vats ruptured. From the decks of the evacuating airships, we watched it happen. We saw the green fire erupt from the bowels of the earth, swallowing the spires, the courtyards, and the graves. The Undercity didn't just burn, it dissolved. The stone melted into slag. The history of our people, every book, every banner, every quiet corner where a monster could feel human, was erased in a heartbeat. As it was the ultimate scorched earth. To deny the enemy a prize, our queen incinerated our home. The Alliance ships turned back, fleeing the toxic cloud that now shrouded the ruins. They had won the ground, but the ground was cursed. As we drifted away into the cold winds of the sea, looking back at the glowing green crater scarring the land, a heavy silence fell over the refugees. We were the Forsaken. We were used to loss. We were used to rejection. But this was different. We realized then that Sylvanas Windrunner did not care about the sanctuary of the Undercity. To her, it was just a pile of rocks. To her, we were just piles of bones. She had proven that she would burn the world to save herself. The Undercity is gone. The sewers where we found our dignity are gone. We are no longer citizens of the dark. We are drifters once more, tethered to a war chief who sees death not as a tragedy, but as ammunition. The war for territory is over. The war for survival has begun. And as the smoke clears over the ruins of Lordaeron, a terrifying question hangs in the air, heavier than the plague fog. War. If she would burn her own home to ash, what will she do to the rest of the world?